If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews, it's your number one source. Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 330 of Sports Card Nation. Part 2 of our great conversation with my good friend Tony Demarzio. We're going to really get into the nuts and bolts of stuff. And quiet guy, but he's got his opinions, as we all do, and as we rightfully should. So going to chop it up again today with Tony. So without further ado, let's keep this short and sweet. Get a quick commercial break in here, and then we'll be back with the conclusion of our conversation with Tony Demarzio.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
All right, here is the conclusion of my conversation with Tony Demarzio. We're going to get into the grading aspect to start off here. You know, you mentioned grading, and like you said, you graded your first card in 2004. You know, I remember I had my store. I had a store from 92 to 97, and I remember when that was really when I first took notice of grading. And one of my customers came in. I remember what card it was, Tony. It was a 92 Bowman Mariano Rivera rookie. He was a Yankee fan. You know, everyone that knows the card, it's Mariano in a polo shirt and khakis. Kind of a cool concept that that was something new as well with the Bowman. A lot of rookie-centric product. And he had it graded by Beckett Grading Service. And he brought it in. He's like, John, I got my Rivera rookie graded. And, you know, he handed it to me. And I was anti-grading to people. You know, I've told the story on my podcast before, but I was kind of like, oh, that's a money grab. His name was Rob. I'm like, Rob, you could have just brought it in here. I would have told you like what condition it was in. You know, you just, threw away $20 or whatever it cost. And then it's in the slam now. You can't hold a card in the sense the same way as you once did. And obviously I've done a 180 now and being a bulk subber for SEC, but even that happened way before the bulk, and we see a lot of with fakes and forgeries and trimming and altering, and obviously grading, whether you like it or not, or whether you do it or not. I think everyone can say, there is a purpose served. Even if you take the numerical grade out of it, just the fact that someone is authenticating it and saying, yeah, this is, real, untrimmed, not altered type of deal. And, without even talking about number grade. So obviously I grade, I set my own cards for grading. I do the bulk subbing, as I said. So I've changed, and that's the beauty of the hobby, right? Is we can have one opinion and then change our minds at some point for whatever reason. We don't even owe an explanation. I like to give one when possible. But grading still has, to the people who don't like it, they have plenty of ammunition in their guns to say why they don't like it. Sometimes when they miss something, or you see something graded a 10 in the slab, and to the naked eye you see, an imperfection, a ding corner, and you're like, how did I get a 10? They've graded stuff that turned out not to be authentic. So there's little pratfalls here and there, and that's any industry. Kind of your thought as someone who's graded quite a bit, like myself. It doesn't deter me from grading, but I whenever something like that happens, I always sort of cringe because I know the people who don't like grading, it's just another notch on their belt to say, hey, this is why we don't grade, and this is why grading's terrible, and that sort of thing. But kind of your own experiences as someone who buys graded cards, who submits graded cards, kind of where we're at currently.
Like you said, I think grading definitely serves a purpose in this hobby. Definitely helps if something should happen to you. It helps your loved ones sell the collection more for a set amount because you can use applications like Card Ladder, BCP, and you can look at a grade of a card. Okay, this is a 6 or 6.5. That can easily be looked up and cross-referenced against previous sales. So it does help in that aspect. It also helps with insurance purposes and any kind of valuation. And then if two friends are trading, or if you're selling something to a dealer or buying from a dealer or trading, it just puts a value next to something. It's like a price guide. It helps work like a price guide, I should say. But it is a frustrating experience for many, and I understand why. It just seems that today the graders are a little bit strict, and I understand why. I'm all for it. And I just think that now PSA and SGC is making up for being maybe a little bit loose 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago when a few cards were more than a few cards were overgraded, or maybe some trim cards slipped through. But I think we're paying the price for it now. For example, if you look at the recent issue of the PSA magazine, there's a set that's profiled in there. I think it's called the Look and See set, or where they have famous people in there. And there's a card in that magazine that was recently graded that's a PSA 9. Well, this card was graded recently, and a month before that card was graded, that same card was a PSA 5. I know the person who submitted the card. It was a 5, and the person knew it wasn't a 5. They just cracked it, resent it, and it came back a 9. So how do you go from a 5 to a 9? So what I'm observing myself is I think that a lot of pressure are on these grading companies, especially the ones that have these card guarantees, to try to get things right. And maybe sometimes in order to get things right a little bit too much, they might have to sometimes overanalyze things, and maybe they miss something, or they think they see something, and things happen. And I don't, everyone's human, and people make errors, but I think that the current SGC and PSA team, I like them so much better than the previous regime, and I think they're dealing with a lot of cleaning up messes from the previous, management of those companies. So I think they're doing their best, but it's a frustrating experience because I have a 38 Gaudi heads up Demarzio without the characters, without the cartoons, and it's an SGC too, and I love it. And due to the case I was using, it put a little bit of pressure on the top of the slab, and it started to crack. So I had a PSA sub that I needed to do. So I'm like, well, instead of just sending it into SGC, let me send it into PSA and, see if it crosses over. And I put a mint grade of 2 because there's an SGC 2. And I compared the aesthetics of the card condition to what PSA defines as a card that's in good condition. It allows wrinkles, it allows rounded corners. And PSA kicked it back to me. They didn't even grade it because it didn't. They would have did a 1.5 or a 1. And I look at the grader notes, and it says round the corners. Okay, PSA 2 allows round the corners, and and they also put wrinkles, not creases, but the word wrinkles. And if you look up the definition of a PSA 2 or good condition, they allow creases, not wrinkles, but they allow creases. So
Yep.
just stuff like that. It's
Yep.
just a little frustrating, but I'm not picking on the graders because I met Nat last year at the National. My son and we finished first in a PSA set registry, the only one that we have, which was the Lionel Messi World Cup base set, 5-card set. We got invited to the PSA awards dinner. PSA did a wonderful job with that. My son and I met Dominique Wilkins. We got his autograph. The food was good. And I also met other folks in the hobby, like Victor, the rookie card fella. And
Yep.
and I met other folks and folks who collected modern, vintage, and it was a great time. So they're definitely trying their best. They're trying to do what's good for the hobby, but I just think that sometimes maybe take a step back and just see what you're trying to accomplish. If it's a little too hard on the consumer, that's all.
Yeah, and remember, it's subjective, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's, my eyes are going to be different than your eyes,
Hmm.
and the other guys are going to be different than both of our eyes. And while they might have guidelines, how accurately a grader follows them, again,
Yeah.
subjective. That shouldn't be as subjective as just the looking at the card itself. But sometimes I think it is. Someone might say a wrinkle in the crease. A wrinkle in the crease is the same thing, where we'll
Hmm.
say it's not. Like you may think it is, but when it comes down to brass tacks, they're actually two different things. And
Hmm.
I had a lot of debate, but someone asked me, at my table at a show, like, John, what's the difference between a wrinkle and crease? Like, to me, I always thought they're the same thing. And my explanation is a wrinkle is kind of on the front or surface or back, and it doesn't go all the way through
Hmm.
to the other side. If it's creased, it's parallel on both sides, and it's like your card got bet at that point, and it shows in the exact spot on both sides. And now, after explaining that, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. So people may just assume like a wrinkle and a crease is the same thing. It might be if you're making your bed, but on cardboard, it's not exactly the same. So that's a great point by you with the definition of the two grade, right? And
What you were
with both
just
sides.
telling me about the wrinkles, I don't think the grader's married because whoever graded this Demarzio cards probably not married because if that person asked their wife what's the difference between a wrinkle or a crease in her skin, I think they would know the difference.
Yeah. So be careful of those single card graders. You might just be knocked down a notch. But it's subjective. Like you said, you
Yeah,
got the human element. I think most people understand that. I don't want to spend a lot of time with this
yeah.
question, Tony, but being we both have experience on the grading side, it's a question I get sometimes asked. I ask other as well. We hear a lot about AI, and AI is already in grading. It's not new, but there's people that want to see the card itself not graded by a person, be graded by a computer system that's graded by AI and not by human hands. I don't mind that if there's still a human that has to sign off on the grade, but I just
Mhm.
don't want the computer to get my card, spit out a grade, and it go in a box and be shipped back to me. We know computers glitch. We know computers make mistakes. We know there can be viruses and overrides,
Mhm.
and I don't even know half the stuff. I don't so much have a problem with the grade by the computer, but I also want that human kind of to sign off on it, almost like that Inspector 12. Like the computers give it a 9. I looked at it and I concur with the 9. Or I looked at it and I think it's an 8. We're going to run it through again and see what it says. Or if there's more than one AI system, we're going to run it through a different one and see what that comes up with.
Mhm.
But I don't want it just to be exclusively AI only. And there's two reasons for that. Kind of what I just said is computers can make mistakes just like humans do. So if you want to use the combination, to try to get the best accurate grade. But I'm a human being, right? And we've seen people lose jobs due to innovation and technology. And I get it; it's part of the future and how we go. But I don't want to see 50 graders walking out the front door on their last day of work. And there's that human aspect. Hey, someone has to go home and tell their significant other, like, today was my last day at work. The AI 5200 is where I used to stand and sit and stuff. It's replacing me as
Mhm.
an aid, sure, but I mean as a complete taking the human element out of it, I don't want to see that. Some will argue. I just think I just wanted to kind of get your kind of thoughts on. And again, we AI exists now. Whenever you send your cards in for grading, whether you're a bulk subber or you're sending 10 cards on your own, they go into the AI scanner they identify the card, if it's
Mhm.
any kind of parallel, a special insert, and then that labels the flip. So AI is in effect for most grading companies as we speak. I'm talking more along the lines like I just mentioned, where it
Mhm.
actually starts, like a tag. You kind of give a numerical grade. Kind of your thoughts on strictly that and not a human.
I think everything you said, I would agree with. Try AI, run it through, and just have a person visually inspect it to see if it's valid or not. Because at the end of the day, it's people programming that software, and then and also the software that runs on the hardware in order for that to work. So I'm in agreement.
Yeah. I agree with you because I think we kind of concur. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I don't. When I get my cards back from grading, I do appreciate the fact that someone looked at that. With magnification in their hands, and maybe multiple people. Maybe he or she said, "Hey, I see this as a 9. What say you? Am I right? Wrong? Depending on the card too, right? So." I don't have a problem with that, but I just, I'd be more nervous having just one computer look at it, and then
Hmm.
you're at the mercy, of that. We talked. You're in Philly. We talked about the shows, and it
Hmm.
seems, Philly's always had shows, but it really some great shows are coming out of that area. It's a great city, right? My nephew's a firefighter there now, lieutenant. And you got your sports teams. The Eagles look like perennial either Super Bowl champions or at least contenders
Hmm.
every year. The Flyers are on their way back, and the Phillies are always, as a Met fan, I know this firsthand, are always uh, usually a leading contender to win the NL East and then vie, to advance in the playoffs and get a World Series. So it's a great sports town with some successful teams. Obviously, a great, rich history. But I mean, what do you? But other than the obvious stuff what do you attribute like to the explosion of some new shows, some existing shows that have gotten even better? As someone who lives there and attends obviously more than me, how do you attribute what's going on in the Philly area?
So the first show I ever attended was the '88 National, which was in Atlantic City. Then in 1989, my father took me to the January. It was in January. It was a 500 home run show where all the living 11 members at that time of the 500 home run club were there. So those were my first two exposures to big shows, other than what we had in local shows and Best Westerns, or at the basement of churches where I actually bought my first pack of Upper Deck 1989 Upper Deck. But went to a show in like 2002 or three at the Philadelphia Convention Center, and that's where I sold a couple of the cards. Even though I wasn't in the hobby, I wanted to get the money, and I used it for other stuff. So I sold the cards to Mr. Mint, and I had to do
Yeah.
my homework before approaching Mr. Mint. But I saw his stack of hundreds. So yeah, he definitely didn't take any mercy on me, but he taught me a valuable lesson to make sure I do my homework before selling cards.
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Hobby Hotline is the hobby's only live interactive call-in show. Join some of your favorite hobby personalities every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, to discuss the hottest hobby topics. If you miss us live, catch us after the fact on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on socials at Hobby Hotline.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Thanks for sticking with us. Let's return to the show.
The Philly show to me after COVID, I went to the Philly show in March of 2022, and then I went in 2023, and just with the amount of athletes that they're getting there, and not only the amount of athletes, but the quality of the athletes. I mean, you got Schmidt, Carlton, Reggie Jackson was supposed to be at the one two times ago, but he wasn't able to make it. And you got the Eagles, you got football players, you got hockey players, I mean, basketball players.
You just had a show
everybody.
where like almost the whole Super Bowl team.
Yeah,
You never see that other than unless they're going to the White House. Which
yeah,
at this point, a lot of teams are declining. But you rarely see that kind of attendance at one show.
It was packed. It was packed. Where on Friday night, my son was able to get done crew practice early, and we got Jalen Hurts' autograph. He signed a souvenir NFL Super Bowl ticket that they were giving out, and he was the nicest guy, humble. He thanked us for signing, and then everyone was there except for Saquon Barkley, pretty much just probably because of contract, or maybe something, or maybe he was just out of town on that week. But everybody was there. Yeah, and even Foles was there for his second out of the last three Philly shows. Foles was there, and that was nice because then you had the two Super Bowl MVPs from the Eagles teams there. So he was there Saturday, and that was really cool. But I got Foles' autograph on Friday, and on Saturday, my daughter and I got Schmidt's autograph on 2 cards, and we got Jake Elliott's autograph. He's the Eagles kicker. So that was fun. But everybody, it was just a lot of fun. And then I know a couple of baseball stars, Hall of Famers, they were kicked until the next show. So they'll be back in the fall, because I guess the Eagles, it wasn't like a last minute thing where they were able to get them all there.
It was the Eagles takeover. So and rightfully so. You just won a Lombardi Trophy. That's a huge deal. So you made a big couple acquisitions and moved some of your existing inventory. If you want to share that, you showed me, but for those listening and watching, if you kind of want to talk about, these are some what we call in the hobby big boy cards, or at least I do.
It's it was a lot of fun. It was a little bit of it was an experience because you had to do homework. So luckily we have apps like Card Ladder, BCP. So the night before, I got up 16 of my Mickey Mantle cards, 3 of my 2 Jordan cards, 86 Flair and 96 Finest Gold Refractor, and they were all graded, so it was easy to get comps for those cards. And then an 84, 85 star Stockton card, and then I brought them to the Philly show with a few other cards, and I sold them, and then I got all that money. Went to one dealer for the mantles, 16 different mantle cards from 56 up to 69. So I was able to keep my 51 Bowman to 55 Bowmans and my 53 Topps card. And and the 86 Flair Jordan, like I said, and a few other ones. And I picked up I got enough money to pick up these two cards. Now, these didn't come from the Philly show, but the money did. So the first is a 1914 Cracker Jack Walter Johnson, and it's a PSA 3. It's an old label. It's a new label. It's an old cert, but before I bought it, I measured it and I got out the loop, and it looked like I was, Tim from Tool Time with all the tools around the belt, checking the cars out and
That's
everything.
smart. It's smart. It's
Yeah,
being
well,
smart.
I held it up to the light to make sure I could see through it, and this is
Yeah.
something that I never thought I was, ever get the opportunity to. But hated moving mantle cards, but
I was going to ask you that, Tony. What I know, even though he's a Yankee, Mantl's, an
mhm.
idol of yours, or so many. Like, how difficult was that to move that many
Well,
of them?
pretty much every mantle card tops from 56 to 69. I kept my favorites, so I kept 51 Bowman up to 55 Bowman. I kept the 53
Yeah,
tops, kept the 67 tops, and I kept the 69. I had three 69 tops. One was the regular one, which I sold, but I kept my autographed 69 tops mantle, which is like a PSA 3 with a 10 auto. And
yeah,
I kept my SGC 3 69 mantle with the white letters. So I kept my favorites. So that meant a lot to me.
yeah,
And but growing up in the 1980s, mantle was the hobby. I mean,
yeah,
you had Mays, you had Banks, you had Williams, who's like a notch below mantle, but at the very top of the Mount Everest or the Mount Rushmore of the hobby at that time, you had Demarzio and Mantle. And
yeah,
DiMaggio always wanted to be first, but
yeah,
Mantle let him go first. But Mantle was everywhere because of the 52 top. So even though I wasn't a Yankees fan growing up, other than Mattingly,
yeah,
you had to respect the Mantle factor everywhere I went.
yeah,
Whether it was buying an issue of baseball cards or a Beckett, Mantle was always there. A lot of articles, and my father telling me stories how great Mays was, and Robin Roberts. But then he says, if I had to pick one person who I saw play live, and I would say the best would be Mays, and Aaron right behind them. But if you had to pick the best player I saw coming from my dad in any one year, it would be Mantle. Mantle was just unbelievable. Unfortunately,
yeah,
he just couldn't. He could not sustain the productivity as long as Aaron and Mace. But when Mantle, he was at the top of his game though.
yeah. And then you acquired. I think you showed the Johnson, and then you had
Yeah,
one other card there if you want
yeah.
to.
So I picked up a 1915 Cracker Jack, and I'll say it like Keith Oberman does, Hannes Wagner. And here
Yeah,
you
look at
go
that.
with this card. And when you shine these up to the light, and I have a YouTube video that I recorded for my channel where I hold them up to lights, and on my Instagram channel you can see the difference,
Yeah,
what these look like. And I never thought I would own a Wagner card. And
yeah,
when this presented the opportunity, and by selling the Mantle and the other cards and a few other cards, like a few
yeah,
Joe Wood cards. I had to sell a Clemente autograph. Luckily, I have another one left. I it was just it was a not an impulsive buy. It was an unexpected buy because I was
yeah,
online. A buddy of mine told me he found one on eBay that day, and he told me how much he paid and what grade. I'm like, that's a pretty good deal. Then I went online and I found one, and of
yeah,
all the places where I thought I would never buy a card from, I bought this from. Because
yeah,
that company's usually, thought of to have the highest prices within the hobby,
yeah.
but not for this Wagner card though.
Yeah. You never know. You never know. That's why you always gotta shop around, even with my Jackie. I mean, I when I knew I was in the market to finally go ahead and just purchase one, I was really deliberate, Tony, in where I bought it, what price I wanted to be at, and that sort of thing. So it makes all the
Hmm.
sense. Incredible, and like you said, you still got all those mantles that are near and dear to your heart
Hmm.
as well. We didn't really touch on it much, but I want to talk about something that probably some people don't know a lot about. Even I don't know. I know some about, not probably as much as you, and that's the proofs of the 77. The Topps Reggie, and so talk about these and like I know some things, but not all things, and then there's going to be some people listening that have no idea, and you're going to kind of break this card in a sense
Hmm.
to them.
So in 1977, at the end of 1976 was the first year baseball had free agency, and with that you had a lot of players, you had moving teams, and
Yeah,
Reggie Jackson was the biggest name then. So starting in December 9th is the date I know of. I don't know of any earlier, excuse me. So December 9th, 1976, Top started creating proofs to test different colors,
yeah,
red, yellow, and blue. And they wanted to test how the colors would be. So they picked out images, they printed these sheets, and they would put all the yellow through first, all the cyan then, and all the magenta. And if they looked good, then they would start to combine colors. And and what I'm showing now on the screen, so for those that are listening, I'm just showing what the Reggie proofs look
look
like in
like
terms of the colors. So once Topps got, and it's called a progressive proof because you're going through the
yeah,
progression of all the different ink colors. So also I'm thinking about this, and Topps didn't have a picture of Reggie at that time wearing his Yankees uh, uniform, so they had to use a Baltimore Orioles one. So they used a Baltimore Orioles picture of Reggie visiting Oakland. So he was wearing the Orioles uniform, but at the Coliseum. And here's a picture of a 1984 issue of baseball cards, which is how I first learned about this card.
yeah,
So I got to somehow I got a hold of this magazine in 1986, even though it came out in 84. So it was a card that people knew existed, but we never saw it before. So early last year, I'm on eBay and I saw that someone actually has a Reggie card for sale. It was in a fall uh, 2019 auction at REA, and REA had all nine colors, and the four color proof, which is the one you see on this magazine, sold for
yeah.
$60,000 or something.
Wow.
But and the black and white one sold, but the other ones didn't sell. It didn't hit the reserve. So I saw this one on eBay right now, and what I'm holding up to my screen is the 1977 Reggie Jackson proof of which was the three colors: blue,
Yeah,
red, and blue, pink, and
yellow.
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 Thank you. And
Yeah,
so I picked it up, and it's a blank back, and I
yeah,
was able to trace the history of this card. So it was purchased from in sheet form at the 1989 Topps Guernseys auction, which is now, it's a piece of hobby history. It's
yeah,
a famous auction, and one collector, Steve Rotman, picked up 9 sheets, and he got all 9 of these sheets, including the one that sold, and he held on to them up until 2019. And then SGC had a program where they would oversee cutting the sheets for you, and they didn't
yeah.
cut the sheets themselves, but they would get someone to cut it, and then they would grade it, and that's how this card came to be
Yeah,
graded.
9.5.
And
Yeah,
yeah, and it's in my collection. And doing further research on the card, I found out that the first known copy of a four-color 77 Reggie proof was at the 1983 National. And then first time it was anyone ever saw one outside of Topps. And then in 1984, it got in that baseball card magazine. And then Mr. Mint must have got a hold of that card because through an Sports Collectors Digest ad, he had the first public sale in 1986. Then you
yeah,
had the auction in 89, and one of the sheets, uncut sheets with the four colors from 1989, was sold in a 1994 auction, REA and Bob Lemke, along with Sports Collectors Digest, bought that sheet, and that's how we came out with this issue from March 25th, 1994. I'm holding up the issue on my screen right now, and they went into the card and they went in a little bit more details, a little bit history about it, about the card, and so it's a hobby important card. The only the only negative about the card is, of the three color proofs, there's less than two of them that exist. I only know one right now, but always double it. Of the four color proofs, Keith Oberman owns about four or five of them, including most of them are uncut sheets, and then he has a cut sheet. And then someone got one graded by CGC recently, and that's up on eBay for some insane amount, and that's the four color proof also. But even though Sports Collectors Digest and Bob Lemke wrote these articles about it in their magazines, and then they actually bought an uncut sheet, they never put it into the standard catalog. So the standard baseball card catalog does not have this card listed. It's not in the Beckett database. So because it's not in those two sources, it was never put in the TCDB database. It's not in the PSA database. So if anything happens to this card, and if SGC doesn't want to grade it now, since they're owned by collectors, I'm going to have a problem because PSA will not recognize it because no one entered it in their database. But they have other proofs, such as the 67 Roger Maris with the Yankees team instead of the Cardinals team. That's in there because there's like 60 of them exist, and those were all sheet cut, scissor cut, and they had blank backs too. So a little bit frustrating, but it's part of the hobby. So I just wish that I hope that the hobby does get a standard catalog of some sort.
And things can, and this, Tony, things can change. What someone says today, people can tomorrow, change the ruling or how they view something. And however you slice it, right? An important part of hobby history, a rare part of hobby history, and very cool. And as someone who appreciates Reggie, right, owning that, I'm sure is a big thrill, regardless of what. So whoever says what or someone recognizes, the significance of it. Other people in the hobby, certain other people in the hobby know the significance of it and how few there are to begin with. So
guess who else knows about the card?
What's that?
I was going to say, guess who else knows about this card? So I'm holding up a picture of Reggie Jackson and my son.
Reggie himself.
And Reggie's holding the card, and I'm holding up the Scion version of the card. And when I got this picture taken at the Cleveland National, Reggie looked at the card and he gave it a double take because he recognized it, and then he just gave me a little smirk.
Yeah.
So he's aware of it, and Reggie was obviously involved in the hobby. In the late 1980s, when he hit the 500 home runs, and he's part of the club. He started buying up rookie cards, and he was going to autograph each one of them up to the number of home runs that he hit. And then he had a house fire, and he restarted it. Then he had another house fire. Unfortunately, he went to Upper Deck.
The first autograph chase was that.
Yeah, the 90 Upper Deck.
Yep, and we know the one that was numbered to 714. He wrote, home runs 714. Some other ones he inscribed Mr. October. So there's a story in the story there. And like you said, if Reggie on the field and even off the field, an important part of the hobby. And growing up in New York City, Thurman Munson was my guy, but I was a young Yankee fan before Steinbrenner kind of ruined that for me. Reggie could have ran for mayor and won without any. That's how beloved he was in New York City. So, you don't get the nickname Mr. October by accident. So, just World Series historics, heroics, and you have an important part of hobby history as well. Very cool. Well, we're coming down the wire here. You mentioned your YouTube. I always give the guest kind of the last say. Give out where people can check out your YouTube channel. They'll see that the Reggie stuff and amongst other things in your collection? Any social media you want to share? Take your time there, Tony,
Sure.
and all that stuff.
So I do have a YouTube channel. It's TJ_is_online. So TJ as in Tony Joseph _is online. And I'm also on Instagram. That's where a lot of my posts are. And Instagram, it's just search for TJ is online. And that's where I could be reached at.
Well, awesome. And there's stuff we didn't even get to. We'll have to have you back on and touch on that as well. But glad to call you my friend. Glad to finally have you on and, maybe see you here in a few months. I better, if I'm going, I better get going and get something done here. Regardless of in any case, thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me. It's quite the honor.
No. Listen, we're just two guys enjoying the hobby, so the feeling is likewise. Thanks,
Yeah,
Tony.
but this is the same chair that Dr. Beckett sat in, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you for having me.
Fun conversation there with Tony. That was part 2. If you missed part 1, no big deal. It's only 1 week back prior. Go back and check that out. Tony's a good dude, man. And Philly's blowing up, and he's a part of that area. He's a Philly guy through and through. And we'll have him back, and maybe you might see him on Breaking Cardboard here sometime soon. So it was fun having him on, and hope you enjoyed the conversation as well. We're going to hear from our Hobbies the People announcer and wrap up the show.
Time for our Hobby is the People announcer of the week.
Hey, this is Jeremy with BST Sport Cards, a platform that has no seller fees. Just want to remind everyone, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People announcer of the week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
Hi, I'm Isaac Albert, a longtime card collector and the co-founder of the Penny Sleever. My wife and I started the Penny Sleever with a simple premise in mind: to offer collectors top quality supplies at fair prices. We offer a full range of hobby supplies, and we'll get them to you fast. Whether you're looking for a 260-point magnetic for that oversized patch card, or a slew of semi-rigids for your next PSA submission, the Penny Sleever has you covered. Shop now at thepennysleever.com and use the promo code SCNation to get 10% off your first order. That's SCNation for 10% off at thepennysleever.com. The Penny Sleever. Top quality supplies, fair prices.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.